hello there, and welcome to my car. My car's a mess. Have I ever mentioned that? Like, it's a proper skip on wheels. I don't know why I've just told you that. I could have said it was immaculate and spotless, but I'd be lying. But here I am, and here you are to watch. And I am here to talk about film this evening. Since I did my report on Hobbs and Shaw, I have been to see two more films, but I'm not going to talk about the first one. I'm going to talk about why I'm not going to talk about it. So here's the thing, right? Thursday evening, me and the boyfriend, went off to see Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, the new Quentin Tarantino film. And I didn't know how I felt about it. And I didn't do a video that evening because I had him with me. And then last night I had the kids with me. So today's been like this evening's been my first chance to talk about it. And I went off to see something else. And in all honesty, and that's what I'm going to talk about now, in all honesty, I'm still a bit confused about how I feel about Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. But having done a bit of reading, read some reviews, and listened to Robbie Collin and Sanjeev Bhaskar talk about it on the Five Live film show. They are in for Mark and Simon, as they are away at the moment. It's kind of shifted my perspective. So I am actually going to go and watch it again, and it's nearly 3 hours long, but I'm going to find that time to go and watch it again because I feel like I need to experience it again before I can talk about it. So that's why I'm not talking about that one. What I am here to talk about is a new film out this week called Blinded by the Light. Now, this is inspired by a true story of a young Pakistani boy growing up in Luton in the 1980s. So there was a real guy whose father had moved over to Britain to start a new life, to have a better life for himself and his children and his whole family. And his son wanted to be a writer. Now is a very successful writer, broadcaster, journalist. But the turning point for the teenage boy came when he discovered the music of Bruce Springsteen. Now that sounds nuts and it sounds made up, and the film is inspired by a true story, but that is true. So in the film, you've got Javed Khan. He is 16 years old. He's off to sixth form college, and he doesn't really know where he belongs because he doesn't quite feel at home with his family and his dad's staunch Pakistani values, and he doesn't really belong at college because there are goths and there are, Wham fans and Bananarama fans. I'll get to the 80s-ness of it in a minute because, oh my god. So he feels like a bit of a fish out of water. He writes poetry. He kind of has this, this voice, but he doesn't know how to express it. And he makes a friend at college, a guy called Roops, who is a Sikh, who gives him two Bruce Springsteen albums on cassette. And when he eventually gets around to listening to them, they change his life. They just blow his mind. Because he feels, as a 16-year-old Pakistani boy in Luton, in 1987, he feels that the boss from New Jersey is speaking to him, and he relates to what he's saying, and it does change his world and his view, and it helps him find his voice, and that's what this film's about. So the original journalist wrote a book called Greetings from Bury Park. I was going to say Asbury Park, but that's where Bruce Springsteen's from. Greetings from Bury Park, Race, Religion and Rock and Roll is the book that inspired this film. The director of this film is Gurinder Chadha, who directed Bend It Like Beckham. I feel that may actually be the only other film of hers I've seen, I'm sad to say. And yeah, it was thoroughly enjoyable. It's not perfect by any means, but it is charming and it was moving and the performances were excellent. If I talk positives, the young lad in the lead role, and I haven't written his name down, so I apologise for that, was excellent. A really lots of close-ups of his face, very expressive, funny. I liked him a lot. The as I said, the 80s-ness. Oh my days. Obviously there's been, we've had Stranger Things recently that's really thrown that spotlight on the 80s, but this is 80s Britain. So yeah, you've got the National Front and you've got Thatcher and you've got recession, but you've also got crimped hair and cassettes and Walkmans and smash hits. Oh, honestly, the attention to detail is just incredible. You see like a newsstand quite near the beginning, and it's just looking at the retro packets of crisps. You know, the detail is just superb, and the costumes, the hair, so much hair on men, women, teenage boys, teenage girls, all the hair, crimping, blonde bits, pink bits, hats. Oh, it was just, I loved it. It was a real, like, it was just wonderful. And the shop fronts, you know, there's you keep seeing the job centre, and it's all the logos of the old ones. You see HMV, and just, oh, it's that time when we need to do this. Ready? There we go. So I loved the lead. In fact, the whole cast were good. Hayley Atwell, who will be known to most, well, many, as Peggy Carter from the MCU. She plays his English teacher, who really inspires him, so she's exceptional. So yeah, it was, you know, it looked good, and it was engrossing. You know, I was totally swept away by it. What sort of pulled me out of it, it has a couple of like musical scenes, and looking at them in parallel with things like Rocket Man, which did it so seamlessly, where they went from, you know, where the music that was being, you know, it became such a part of the story, and I don't think it manages to do that quite as well. And they use the same Bruce Springsteen song over and over and over again, and I don't even know which one it is, but the lyrics occasionally sort of pop up on the screen, which is fine as a sort of visual thing, but they kept using the same song, and I was like, he's been going a while, he's got to have more songs than this. So yeah, that kind of pulled me out of it occasionally, because it didn't work as well as I think it could have done. There's some storylines that kind of don't really go anywhere. There's a friendship with a boy. Well, he's friends with him from the very beginning, and that character sort of comes and goes, but that storyline doesn't really go anywhere. So yeah, like I say, not perfect, but if you sort of go with it and sort of give yourself over to it, it is very enjoyable. And the thing between father and son, that conflict, the belonging in different places. So this lad, you know, he's got Pakistani heritage, he's born and raised in Luton, but then he feels an affiliation to an American he's never met. So yeah, that feeling of sort of not really belonging anywhere. And I love the idea of music speaking so personally to somebody, because I remember when I was in my teens and I was angsty AF, and I'd be like analysing lyrics and thinking, oh my god, it's like the song's written about me. So I totally get on board with that, and writing loads of poetry. I mean, obviously this guy's was really good because he's now a writer, and mine not so much because I'm not. So yeah, I enjoyed it overall. Certainly, as I say, not a perfect film, but very, very enjoyable. And I totally feel like I was going to say something else, and it's popped out of my head, so I'll probably just call it there. Is it worth seeing? Yes. Yeah, what I was going to say, I can't pretend I know what it's like to... I mean, I do have a feeling of not belonging, not fitting sometimes. There are moments in this film where Javed and his family come up against racism, and it's horrible. And it makes me flinch. Like, I actually looked away from the screen a couple of times, and what do I know about racism? I'm white as you like, you know, I was born and raised in the West End of Newcastle, so I don't know what it feels like to be oppressed like that. It makes me sad that so many of the themes of whether you've got the National Front and the whole go home, go back to your own country thing is something that we're still seeing now, and we're seeing so much in the US, obviously with that orange buffoon at the head of all of these things. That makes me sad, that we haven't moved on. enough, or maybe we did move on and now we're going backwards, I don't know. So yeah, that was difficult to watch in places, but it's part of the story. Having said that, it's kind of touched on, but it's not really explored in depth. So yeah, I'm not going to go any more into it because I don't want to spoil it for anybody who is going to see it. But yeah, there are moments when it's quite intense, the racism and the experience of the characters, and then it's sort of not brushed aside, but then we're off on a more whimsical scene with Javed and his friend and his girlfriend singing, you know, Born to Run all over Luton. Overall, though, enjoyable. Definitely worth a watch. Perhaps not a cinema visit, but well worth checking out at some point, especially if you like the music of The Boss. And who doesn't? I made a note of the name of the actual journalist who inspired the story, whose book inspired the story, and his name is Sarfraz Manzoor. And I didn't want to not have that to quote, but I haven't got names of actors and things like that, which makes me feel bad. But yes, it is a lovely little film, and quite sweet and quite moving in places. And I'd say with a great soundtrack, but that's only really true if you're a big fan of Bruce Springsteen. Once Upon a Time in Hollywood review coming soon, maybe. Other stuff I definitely need to talk about, but for now it's late and I'm tired and I'm gonna bail. So Katie in a car saying thank you and good night. Like, subscribe, all that shizzle. I lost a subscriber this week. My numbers are so low that I notice, and I went from 75 subscribers to 74. So somebody's gone, do you know what? She can do one. Which makes me a bit sad, but there we are. Hopefully I'll pick up some more with this. But for now, Katie out. Good night.